Hey everyone, in this video we will learn about closure. We will see its uses and application in the real world and how can we use it in our cases. Okay, so what is a closure? A closure happens when a function returns access to variable of its outer function even after that outer function has completed execution. Okay, and let's see from an example. So suppose that we have a function, outer function. Okay, and inside of it we have multiple variables defined, like let's suppose a variable name greet. Okay, and the value is hello world. Okay, and let's suppose that this function returns a new function, return a function, inner function, with just console this value variable greet. Okay, so closure is what? A function bundled together with its surrounding state. Okay, so what happens is that when we call this outer function, it will return in inner function, and when we call that inner function, it can still access the variable of outer function. Okay, so let's see that. Suppose that this outer function returns another function, this inner function. So let's store this value in a variable name return func. Okay, so this return function will be this inner function, and if we want to call this inner function, we have to call this function. Okay, so if we call this inner function, this return function, then it should console greet like hello world. Okay, so let's see node closure. Okay, so here you can see hello world is printed. Okay, so here we can see that this inner function can access the variables of its outer function even if the execution of outer function is done. Like here you can see outer function is done executing, and also it remembers the reference, not the value of the variables. Like suppose that uh, to test it, we can change the this variable value of this variable to hey there. Okay, so for the first time hello world is printed, and after that execution of the first time, this hello grid get changed to hey there. So if we call it again, then second time hey there will printed. Okay, so this is closure. It has multiple application. Let's see some of the applications. The closure are like memoization, currying, devounce, once function, and for data hiding and encapsulation. Okay, now let's talk about memoization. So what is memoization? Memoization is a technique where we try to improve performance of a function. Okay, so how can we do it? We can increase the performance by caching its already computed result. Okay, so what we do is that suppose if we are calling a function with same set of arguments, then instead of uh, getting the result by calling the function, we can get the result from the cache. Okay, so what we do is that whenever the function is getting called for a set of argument, we will check if that function has already been called for that set of argument or not. If it has already been called, then we will get the value from that cache, otherwise we will call that function. Okay, so suppose we have a function name multiply, so it take two arguments and just return their multiplication. Okay, okay, and we have a function memoize it. Okay, so what it does, it take a function and returns the memoized version of that function. Okay, so it has a variable named cache, which is used to store the already computed value of this function. Okay, and it returns a function, new function, and this function can have arguments, like these are the arguments. Oh, what is this three dots here. So this is known as a REST operator. So what is REST operator? So suppose that we have a function which has thousand of arguments, like a, b, c, dot 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 dot, thousands of arguments. Okay. So for like, instead of giving name to all the arguments here, like a, b, c, then z, then a b, a, c, like that, we have to do it thousand times. Okay. So instead of doing it, we can simply take all the arguments in an array. Okay. So how will we do it? We can do it by REST operator. So like that. So what it do? So this REST operator, these three dots REST operator, store all the arguments in a array. Okay. So suppose if we want to access the first argument a, then we can access it by const a equals to arguments dot zero. Okay, because this args is the array of all the arguments of this function. Okay, and if suppose we want to access the last argument, then we can access it by arguments, then args dot length minus 1. Okay, so this is the rest operator. Okay, so here in the args variable, all the arguments of this function will come as an array. Okay, then we will check if that argument already exists, like we have already computed value of the function for that set of argument or not. Okay, so how can we uh, cache the function? So we can use this argument for the key of the cache. Okay, so this argument will be an array and the key can only be string in a object, so we will convert it to string. Okay, so let's convert it json dot stringify args. So it will convert this argument array args array to string. Then we will check if that key exists in cache or not. Okay, so if cache has on property, so this function used to check if that key exists in a object or not. Okay, so if that key exists, then we will simply return the cache dot key. Okay, and if it does not exist in the cache, then we have to call this function. Okay, and store its value in the cache. Fine. So how can we call this function? So we can use JavaScript call method, function dot call. Okay, so JavaScript call method call a function with the given this and set of arguments. Okay, it takes the arguments as individual arguments, so that that's why we have used here spread operator. So it will iterate through all the arguments and spread it here. Okay, and then we can return this cache value. Okay, from here. Fine, let's see what will happen in normal case and what will happen if we memorize this function. Okay, so before testing it, let's add a console log here, by which we can know that this function is getting called or not. Okay, so console log multiply called for this set of arguments. Fine, so we will call this multiply function for a same set of arguments 2 and 3 times, and will store it in variable val1, val2 and val3. Okay, fine, so const val1 equal to multiply 2 and 3. Okay, so let's call it 3 times. Okay, so here we are calling this multiply function 3 times for 2 and 3. Fine, same set of argument. Okay, and let's console this val1, val2 and val3. Val1. Okay, 2 and 3, and now let's run it. So fine, and also let's comment it for now. Okay, so here you can see this console multiply called for 2 and 3 is coming 3 times, as we have called this function 3 times. Fine, so we are getting this console log 3 times. Fine, and the same value 6 is consoled. We call this multiply function for 2 and 3. Okay, and store it's in value 1. So we already know uh, the result of this multiplication function, this multiply function for 2 and 3. But even if we call it again and again, we need to calculate, this function need to calculate the value for 2 and 3 again and again. Fine. Okay, so we can optimize it, right? So like we can use this Memoization function what we made to optimize this multiply function. Okay, so this Memoization function will return the memoized version of this multiply function. Okay, so let's store that function in a variable named optimized multiply. Fine, so this Memoization function, we will call this Memoization function and pass our multiply function as argument. Okay, so this Memoization function will return the optimized version of this multiply function. Fine, so now if we call this function 3 times, and let's console it for now. Fine. So we are calling this optimized multiply function 3 times for same set of arguments 2 3 2 3 2 3. Fine, and we are storing its value in val1 val2 val3, and we are consoling this variables. Fine, now let's run it. So here now you can see that here we are getting console log only once. For the first time only we are getting the console logs. Fine, and for the other times we are not getting the console log, and but we are only getting the value. Fine, so why is it happening? So when this multiply function is called for the first time for this 2 and 3, then here this key, in the key we have this 2 and 3. Fine, so this is key is array 2 and 3, string version of this array 2 and 3. Okay, so it will check if this key exists in our cache or not. If that key exists in our cache, then we are returning value from the cache. Okay, and if it does not exist, then we are running our function and storing the result of this function in the cache and then returning the value from the cache. Okay, so for the first time we have our cache empty. Fine, okay, so this for 2 and 3, for 2 3 the key will be this 2 3, and it will come here in, and it will call the our multiply function, this function. Okay, this function multiply function getting called for the arguments, for the set of arguments we are giving. Okay, a and b, and this function return the value 6, and it get stored in the cache this. Okay, so our cache become, so our cache here will be uh, this 2 3, and the value will be 6. Okay, so our cache will become this, and then this cache value, this 6 is get returned. Fine, so this happened for the first time, and when we are calling this same function for the same set of arguments second time, then it checks if that key, this key exists in our cache or not. So we already have this key in our cache, so instead of calculating calling that function again and again, it just simply return the value from the cache. Okay, so return this cache, this value is get returned from here. Okay, so that's why this function is not getting called for second time, and that's why we did not get console log. And so that's why we get console log only for once, only for the first time, and for the other times we are not getting console log. Okay, so this is the memoization technique. Fine. Okay, so in this video we learned about closure and its first application, memoization. and in the next video we will learn about currying. Okay, so thank you for watching.